Everybody thinks Palm Angels blew up selling clothes, tracksuits, hoodies, that gothic old English logo, but here's the problem with that story. It's wrong. Before single hoodie existed, Palm Angels had already carved out a place in culture, and they did it in a way that 99% of streetwear brands will never try. No seasonal drops, no lookbooks, no cop now captions. And here's the wild part, they were making money, real money, from something you couldn't even wear. I'll tell you what it was in a minute, but first, if you're grinding right now, making clothes nobody is buying, it's cool, it happens. But Palm Angels' early playbook is the cheat code you've been ignoring, because this is proof you can build hype, credibility, and even revenue without selling a single piece of clothing. Back in 2014, Francisco Ragazzi, who was still the art director at Montclair, started something that didn't look like a streetwear brand at all. It looked like an art project, but he wasn't making art for gallery walls. He was building an asset so strong, it would get him into Colette during Paris Fashion Week before Palm Angels even existed as a clothing line. It wasn't a store, it wasn't merch either, and it definitely wasn't a logo slapped on blanks. You need to understand a move he made that most brands are too impatient to try. As the culture buys into the world, the product sells itself. Alright, so Francisco's day job was shooting luxury campaigns, but his side hustle was him building something way different than that. It was a document. For years, Francisco's been flying back and forth from Milan to LA, hanging around Venice and Manhattan Beach. Remind you, his camera was in hand, not a skateboard. He wasn't at the spot to land tricks. He was there to capture the vibe no one in luxury was even touching, which was the golden hour light bouncing off palm trees, scuffed decks leaning on chain link fences, kids smoking on the curb like they own the city. This wasn't another skate mag showing tricks in midair. This was the LA skate scene shot like an art house film. Art house meaning cinematic, intimate, dripping with style. And after years of collecting these moments, he packaged them into a 208-page hardcover published by himself. A foreword by Pharrell Williams, stamped with instant credibility. Now here's where it gets wild. The book launch wasn't a low-key, buy it online type of thing, right? It debuted at Milan Gallery. It ran as a full exhibition at Colette during Paris Fashion Week. It was the art event in that region, not just for skaters, but for editors, stylists, and collectors. Price tag, we talking around $55, but that's not the point though. This wasn't about moving units. It was about placing Palm Angels in the rooms that decided what was cool and what wasn't, and it worked. Complex named it one of the most anticipated art books of the year. Women's Wear Daily called it shining a spotlight on LA skateboarding style. Collect shelved it next to design books and rare prints. Years later, the book resold prices climbed well above its original $55 price point. The entire brand existed only in people's minds, which is what I want you guys to get. It wasn't no logos again, hoodies, no racks of merch. Just the world, and owning that book meant owning a piece of it. Proof is greater than product in some cases. If you believe in your world before the product exists, you've already won. And this is where most founders mess it up. They launch a t-shirt and hope someone cares. There's something wrong with that combination. Fernando launched Believe first, then product second. But the no clothes era for his brand wasn't just about a book on a shelf. It was a masterclass in building cultural gravity before you even have anything to sell. And his next moves made that gravity impossible to ignore. The book wasn't the end of the story, it was a starting gun point. Once it was out, Francisco treated it like a passport into every room that mattered. The first stop that it made was the art and fashion crossover. Paris Fashion Week, Colette Gallery walls, influencers wandering in and out, walking out with Palm Angels under their arm. Not because they were paid, but because owning that book made you part of the conversation. Then came the collabs, not the usual slap your logo on a tee. Late in 2014, Palm Angels linked with luxury eyewear label Maikita for a limited box set, which was the book that we just talked about, a pair of exclusive sunglasses, and a co-branded case that came with the glasses. This was genius. A high-ticket, wearable entry point for people who wanted a piece of the brand but still couldn't buy the actual clothes because they were not out yet. And just like that, Palm Angels had something only a handful of brands in the world could actually claim, which was cultural gravity. You didn't have to beg for press. Vogue, GQ, and Hypebeast were already talking. Streetwear icons and tastemakers began wearing Palm Angels early on, amplifying its credibility through cultural channels. Here's why this worked. Fernando wasn't selling product. He was selling proximity, or in a more practical term, presence. Presence to Pharrell, presence to Paris Fashion Week, or even to a scene that looked expensive without needing to try. From the people that I talked to, majority of founders for brands know this. If the right people have it, everyone else will want it. The way he positioned Palm Angels was pure cultural chess type of moves. Every placement was intentional. No products in malls, stores, not any random pop-ups, just the right events, the right stores, and the right hands touching the product. For most brands, this is the point where they'd rush into merch, flood the market, and kill Mystique. Fernando did the opposite. He doubled down on the slow burn, which meant that when Palm Angels finally did decide to sell clothes, it wasn't a launch. It was a release everyone had been waiting for. By 2015, Palm Angels had something rare, which was cultural equity with a price tag of 0. The hype was so built in, the only question left was, when do we cash out without killing the mystique? What I'm trying to tell you guys is that most brands usually rush this moment. They drop early, go cheap, and hope people bite the bait. Palm Angels did the opposite, y'all. They waited until demand was undeniable, then came in swinging at luxury prices. Fall and winter 2015, Milan. This was their first collection. It was a statement. Tailored blazers but with skater graphics. Flared trousers, biker jackets as you see on the screen, outerwear that belonged in a Milan boutique but looked like it had just left on Venice Beach. Again, remember to his early days when he did the research and he started to do photography traveling to LA skate spots in Manhattan and Venice Beach. Well, that same structure and foundation came back to play again on his first collection, which was brilliant. No affordable line, no clearance rack. The cheapest buy-in was still premium because the product wasn't meant to earn credibility. It was a reward for the world they'd already built. And here's the killer move. Fernando didn't roll this out alone either. He plugged straight into New Guard's group, which was the machine behind Off-White and Heron Preston. That meant Palm Angels launched with instant global distribution, the highest manufacturing standards, and placements in stores that many brands take decades to reach. If you were a founder watching that launch, it was like seeing someone skip the entire grind. If you didn't know about their early come up, no pop-up hustles to remind you, no DM to order. It went straight to Barney's, Colette, and the Fashion Week runways. A lesson that you gotta take away from this video is earn demand before you supply. If they're not already chasing you, then you're not ready to sell. Within 3 years, Palm Angels wasn't just in the conversation, it was shaping it. Montclair, Genius collabs, Under Armour capsules, global type of stores like what I said with Barney's. They prove you can go from no product to full luxury positioning if you build the world first, then drop into it at the exact right moment. In the next phase, that's when Palm Angels showed how to scale a lifestyle without selling out their core identity. If you strip Palm Angels down to the bones, there's a blueprint here that any brand, even without the Montclair Connect, can use inside any industry, not just fashion. Build credibility before inventory. Most brands launch products and pray for credibility. This brand built credibility first. Years of documenting a scene, not selling to it. If your scene believes in you before you sell, you'll never have to beg for sales. You also have to make your product a trophy. For almost 2 years, the only way to own Palm Angels was through a $55 book or a rare collab they had. By the time clothes actually dropped, they weren't hoping for people to buy in. They were a prize for people that already existed inside of them. Delay the drop and you create demand you can't manufacture with ads. You should also curate your brand access like it's actual currency. Palm Angels didn't chase every store or event they targeted. Palm Angels didn't chase every store or event. Again, they specifically targeted Colette, Vogue, Pharrell. All go hand in hand, all is like the right type of energy and centered within the same community. Every placement raised the brand's value, and you have to think like that for your brand as well. If you're everywhere, you're nowhere. Be seen in the places that set the tone for your culture. That's why that pre-building phase and branding is so important. Like, a lot of people don't really talk about strategy, but I feel like the execution is just about discipline. The strategy is where the real work takes place. Even after the clothing launch, Palm Angels kept selling lifestyle over product. They didn't just flood their feeds or try to push the product to the people. Art shows, photography, events, That's the type of things they were about. When your brand is a world, you can sell anything inside of it. Clothes, books, collabs. This is how I want people to start thinking without losing your identity that you took so long to build. Before their first hoodie, they made money from books, art, and collabs. Later on, as the brand started to grow and they started to increase their recognition, it was licensing, partnerships, equity deals. There's levels to this. You could go further and further and further. Your logo, your imagery, your cultural footprint can make you money in ways product alone can't. The takeaway is don't rush to sell. Don't rush to sell. Build up your community. Refine your activities that make your community share genuine interests with one another. Build a world your scene wants to live in. Then invite them in on your terms. Right now, the streetwear game is louder than it's ever been, and it's not in a good way either. I mean, back-to-back drops, recycled graphics. Every brand is screaming over the same beat and lyrics, and the algorithm, but most importantly, the people are starting to tune them out. Palm Angels stood out because no one else was documenting culture like luxury for skating at the time. In 2025, it's the same advantage, just amplified. While all these other brands is fighting for quick sales, the brands building worlds like Cortez, Supreme, and plenty more are the ones that are actually winning loyalty. Look around, y'all. There's plenty of micro brands like Mutimer from Australia that's actually pulling in real numbers around the world. They have their page that shows the product and lifestyle. And even if they just have a brand page that's pushing product, they have a secondary Instagram page that's showing the behind the scene content. Showing a studio at 2 a.m., the crew skating at a busted parking lot, that random wall that became a lookbook for a backdrop. They're selling life, again, not just logos. Palm Angels prove you don't have to flood the feed to stay relevant. You just have to own your lane so completely that people see you as the reference point. And here's the part most founders miss. If you only post product, you're in a price war. If you post your world, there's literally no comparison. When you set the standard, you stop competing. The noise will keep getting louder, the trends will keep moving faster, but the brands that survive won't be the ones chasing them. They'll be the ones building something so distinct, the culture or community of people will have no choice but to follow them. And so if I walked in your studio right now and took away every single t-shirt, hoodie you probably made or had, what actually would be left? Would your audience still care? Would they still talk about you? Shit, would they even still follow you? For Palm Angels, the answer to these questions was always yes, because the clothes were never the hook, the world was. That's the real play here. When your brand is bigger than the item you sell, you can survive in any trend, any algorithm, any slow month, because your people aren't buying fabric. They're buying belonging. And that belonging is being a part of a community. I want you guys to put it this way. This brand built a place and culture so strong. The merch that covered their body actually felt like souvenir. And the brands that went long term, they all start this way. If y'all want to see how far this ideal can go, subscribe to my channel and let others know who may be interested in conversations like this as well. This is Lee from Norff Studios. Till next time, I'm out of here. Peace.